In this week's episode, we discuss the viral Amy Shark video of her on the plane responding to a crying baby. There was lots of these ones, lots of sarcasm. Now, me being a mum myself, I have some pretty strong opinions on this. We chat all things leveraged compounding and the fact that it does require delayed gratification when you do something like that. What's been happening in our business over the past week, and a big lesson that I personally learned, which sent me into a big downward spiral. So I talk to you about all things that, and I leave you on a bit of a cliffhanger. So you'll have to wait till next week, but I'll see you inside. I know you're going to love this. What's up, guys? How are you?
So good. How are you guys?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm like so into the year already. Like it's only the 16th of Jan, and I'm already like, let's go. Feeling like it's, we're already in June.
Crazy. I feel the exact same way. I think I didn't have like too much downtime over the break, and I just felt like I already feel like I'm in March because I got so much done through the holiday season. So I'm starting 2026 with a bang as well.
Yeah.
And I think having that big break for me means that already in these first couple of weeks, there's been decisions made, a lot more clarity on things. It's such a good reminder. I remember someone telling me, who was also self-employed, we're not self-employed to just work all the time. Make sure you at least have one long weekend at a minimum every quarter so that you can have a refresh. And honestly, I say it every year, I get better at it every year, but this is yet again another reminder of how important those breaks are and booking them in at this time of year so that they happen rather than getting to March, then June, then July, going, I'm freezing, I want to go somewhere, and you've got lots of work on and you're still building up. It's so important to schedule it in.
Totally. Actually, I've spent way too much time in Australia. Like I am done. And so we're actually flying back to Bali today. So after this, I'm going to the airport and we're flying back home. And I've never seen Scott, my husband. He's like dreaming about it. He's like, get me back to Bali. But I'm actually feeling a little nervous to fly with my son. And this is crazy because I've flown. I mean, he's been on so many planes and he's perfectly well behaved on every single one. But I don't know if you guys saw the Amy Shark video of her. She was on the plane. Actually, I want everyone to just watch this. So we'll just play it up here. That's got me feeling a bit nervous because I'm now thinking I'm already nervous to go on a plane with him because I mean he's 5 now, so he's pretty good. I can, he's very happy just to sit on his iPad, and it's only a 3.5-hour flight, so this one's fine. But just to know that there are some people that will be on that plane with very strong opinions that children shouldn't be flying, full stop, makes me just feel a bit uncomfortable that I could be sitting next to someone that has that much hatred in them for kids going on public transport. So I'm a mum myself, so I have some pretty strong opinions about this, but I would love to hear from both of you because I know becoming a mum is something that potentially you would like to do down the line. What's your views on the internet exploding about this?
Sure, but if it's a baby or a young kid, like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were the perfect human being. So I think it's actually yeah, of course, it can be frustrating, but it's not something you, in my opinion, can get annoyed or worried about because that's just, you're the only one causing yourself issues in that situation. And the other thing I would say about it is I think it is such an opportunity for airlines from a business point of view. I will never forget paying an extra $40 on AirAsia to go to the quiet zone up in the, you turn left on the plane, take my money. It was awesome. I was like, perfect. It's a win-win. $40. I was like, take my money. That's great. That is the single girl's place on the plane. That's awesome. But I think for people to react or get annoyed at that, then they're just creating their own misery because it's like getting worried about the weather.
Right.
And so you said, Brooke, that this actually went to the news. Like, is this a newsworthy article?
Well, it's just because of how much the internet exploded and how divided everyone was. And so for me, this is less about the fact that, babies are actually going on airplanes. But for me, what's actually uncomfortable about this whole thing isn't the noise itself. It's how quickly we've lost tolerance for normal human inconvenience. Somewhere along the way, over the last however many years, we've lost the ability to tolerate just basic human inconvenience. And we've decided that public spaces should not feel private, curated. Well, they should actually feel that. And that for me is my problem. It's like people are acting, and some of the comments is like, oh, how oblivious are the parents? Like they should be telling their child to shut up. And I'm like, are you actually joking? Like it just feels like the opinion is just not even valid because they don't have children themselves, and they think like, oh yes, you should just be able to self-soothe your 8-month-old baby who, by the way, is in an environment high pressure. They've never been in it. Their ears are probably going off funny. Like, please be my guest. Tell me, instead of just coming with all this hate, tell me how you'd like me to self-soothe my 8-month-old baby who can't speak and can't understand what we're actually doing. Like I just find that absolutely wild.
And in the baby's defense, like how scary would an airplane be? The noises, the vibration, the people, like holy hell.
Yeah. I also just think like something else that's really kind of pissed me off about this is like the person who feels the most amount of stress in those moments is the damn mum. Like they're the ones that also feel extremely uncomfortable. So imagine already feeling uncomfortable and stressed and like, oh my goodness, like, well, like please be, and then having a fully grown man, because this is another video that's actually come to air this past week, yell in your face to just add to that stress. Like, grow up. You're a fully grown ass adult, and you are yelling at a mother and her child to what? To actually
This
what?
but this is comes back to, you know, this comes back to the idea that in situations where someone is like they're born with something and that's their current situation, like they can't necessarily do anything about that, so therefore it is your issue. You're the only one getting upset. Bring some earplugs. Don't fly on family. Like if ever I fly Jetstar, there's always more families on Jetstar because it's cheaper. Like just pick a different airline, go to a different part of the plane, bring your earplugs, get over it. You're the only one going to get upset there because you're making yourself, you always have a choice over your reaction. And when someone is in a situation because of the way they were born or because they were only born 8 months ago, then it's actually, I think it's your responsibility to be accommodating to that or sort yourself out, you know?
And like this is the thing, right? It's a completely different conversation that we can have around parents actually parenting. To me, that's not even in this debate. It's not something that's a separate thing. We're talking about babies who cannot self-regulate yet, crying and inconveniencing other people who have purchased a ticket on the same plane. And see those little things that you're wearing, Viv, those noise canceling headphones? Like, why don't you grab yourself some of those, chuck on a meditation, listen to some Tony Robbins, and actually regulate your nervous system? Because you are the grown ass adult. And in that situation, when the mum's doing absolutely everything she can to help ease and make sure everyone's feeling comfortable, the one thing that you could do is give some fucking empathy. There it is.
Yeah. And it's also
And I
not going to change. Like the baby's not going to change. The weather's not going to change. You just have to decide how you're going to, like you say, regulate your emotions around it.
And I think pulling on that thread that you said, Viv, I love like you can handle your reaction. And at the end of the day, you know, them reacting to the situation, it's only going to negatively affect their life. Like having an emotional reaction to that standpoint, that could last the whole flight. It could then last the whole day, the whole week. So, like, what is the point? It's like road rage. It's like,
Right.
makes, you know, it's like, yeah, just, yeah, regulate your emotion a little bit better.
There are just things that we can't control, and this is one of them. You cannot control who you sit next to on the plane, and if you really are bothered by it, then buy the other 2 seats if it really is that much of a concern to you. But when you're on a plane, it's pretty much out of your control. So the only thing you can control is your emotions and the way that you respond. And I once got taught that the longer you can extend your reaction, the better it's going to come out. Because obviously in the moment, if something is really, if you are already heightened, maybe you've had, you know, a bit of a ring around at the airport. And so like you're already feeling heightened, and then you've jumped on a plane and you've got a baby next to you and they're crying their eyes out, like, cool. That is a tough and situation to be in. And there's probably every part of you that wants to just scream and have a tanty. But we don't do that because we know better. We know how to regulate our nervous system, and we can extend our reaction time so that we can actually turn and say, hey, can I help you with anything? Like, how fucking hard is that? I'm sorry, this
Yeah.
gets me so riled up because I'm just like, people that don't have kids to have such a strong opinion on them traveling, because there were some people who were literally like, they shouldn't fly, full stop. Like, they should not be allowed to fly.
Well, I think I don't agree with that, but I do think there's a business opportunity for someone to say child-free flights. 100% charge a premium
agree.
for it. But you can't. Loud noises might be frustrating, but it's not something. If you go through life letting that affect you and not learning how to control your emotions, life is going to be very difficult.
Right. And it's just even emotions to emotions, right? So there's been a few people that have sort of jumped on the bandwagon and they're posting their opinions about where the kids should travel. And anyway, there's a guy that I know that I'm, quite good friends with who is on the other team who's like, yeah, fuck kids on flights. And like, you should see some of the comments, like from people that obviously is within his circle that is kind of like, that's it, unfollow. When did we get to the point where we can't have opposing opinions but still respect each other and just not have to unfollow and just act out of rage? It really baffles me that two adults can't see eye to eye, but instead of just shaking hands and remaining friends, we have to be like, that's it. You look at it that way, I look at it this way. We can no longer be friends. How dare you have that opinion? What about meatism? It's just wild.
I think that's a whole different other conversation, Brooke, because I could go on for ages about how social media feeds that and the news feeds the division. But yeah.
Anywho,
Kids
rant
crying on
over.
planes. It's going to happen. Control your emotions.
Right. I needed to get that off my chest because it was just something that I've just felt so compelled to speak on, because I know there's so many mums out there who already feel the shame and who already feel the stress of having to travel long haul flights with their babies. And I think they're superheroes. I really do. I think it's absolutely amazing to see what mums are able to do, and to have people who would look at that situation and be like, oh, for fuck's sake. I seriously just, I'm like, grow up, grow the fuck up. So
And Amy
anyway,
Shark's a mum, right? Is she a mum? Amy
I
Shark?
don't know. No, I don't think so.
Okay. I thought she was a mum.
I mean, that would be more acceptable if she was, because then it would be more relatable. She can be like, oh, I left my kids at home to go on a flight and I'm actually around. Like, to me, that's more relatable. But it was the eye roll and the like real sarcastic, like, woo, that I think upset a lot of people. Yeah. Anywho, what's going on in your world? Let's
Good
change the
luck.
subject.
Yeah.
Have a fun flight.
Katie, you've got a hot topic for us this week, and when I saw this on
Well,
the schedule, it was
not as
cool.
hot as the Amy Shark topic. I've got a very kind of boring topic, but if there was one thing that I could, get the listeners to take away from this entire podcast that I think could change the absolute trajectory of your life, it is a boring topic, but I think an important one. It is compound growth and compound leverage growth. And I think that this was just a massive turning point for me in my journey, because I always kind of thought, you know what? Yeah, I know what compound interest is. I understand compound growth. But until I actually felt it happen in my life, did I experience the magic of compound growth. So the way I like to think of it is kind of like we have a tree. So as business owners, we sort of have a tree that produces fruit, therefore, which is our income. And we have to look after this tree, we have to water it, we have to, fix the pests, etc., etc. The tree grows and it produces fruit. What I did for the first 10 years of my journey, and what a lot of business owners do, is they sort of pick the fruit, they eat the fruit, and then they will reinvest back into the same tree to make it bigger, bolder, brighter, to produce more fruit. And so every time, the tree grows fruit, aka your income, it creates fruit that you can pick, you can eat, and you can kind of recycle it back into the tree. But the way that I like to think of compound growth is that if we took that same analogy, and instead of just eating the fruit and reinvesting it back into the same tree, we actually planted some of the seeds of the fruit to produce more trees. So if off the first tree we got 5 seeds, And those seeds, one more tree grew. We've now got 2 trees that we can pick the fruit, eat some fruit, reinvest the fruit, but then plant more seeds. And, it is a very slow burn at the start because not all seeds will grow into a tree. But if every time you do this, you are multiplying your trees and each tree grows more fruit, you can imagine that over time, how many trees you could actually grow. And all of a sudden, you've got a whole forest. And so, this is how I like to think of compound growth. So, one of the major parts that kind of, I guess, helped me understand it in a better form is just using compound leveraged growth. And this is where I think it gets super, super powerful. So, to think of that, I have put in a little example together just in the property market. So, for any of our listeners thinking about property, getting into property, this is where you can really make the compound leverage growth work for you. So, compound leverage growth.
Okay, sorry, Katie, can I just pause here just in case we lost people so I can get a handle on the just compound growth as the bare minimum and then get the explanation on leverage growth. So my understanding of compounding growth and interest and in my experience with it has mostly been in shares. So for example, if you put in $100 and that got, let's for example's sake, it gains 10% interest on the share market every year, that becomes $110. And then over the next year, you have that $110 and you get 10% of that, which is what, $11? I don't know. Anyway, whatever. But the reason that understanding compounding interest is so important, of which there are lots of free calculators online, is because of inflation that we have. So if you just keep money in the bank, then that gets small, like it essentially gets smaller, or your buying power. So, ice cream and, trend at the moment is 2016 versus 2026 probably has doubled in price or something. And that's an example of how inflation means that everything costs more over time. So having money in something like shares means that that's growing all the time without you having to do anything. Then the second part, yeah, keep going, Brooke.
I am an analogy person, so I love the tree analogy, but I want to make it a little bit more clear, right? So, Katie, if we didn't replant seeds to make more trees, what would actually happen is the fruit would become less and less and less and less over time, right?
Well, it depends. You could reinvest into the tree to make it bigger and bolder and produce more fruit into the
But
one tree.
ultimately, it would still, if we weren't creating more trees, eventually we would actually have less fruit to pick from that same tree.
Yeah, and I think
Well, maybe you need to eat more.
Yeah.
As you grow, you need to eat more, so you're not going to be able to.
We need our family members to reinvest back into it.
You might have like a pest come along and eat the tree, and because you've only got one tree, it could die.
And something else I think is important to highlight here as well is when you plant a new tree, it's like you have access to new fruit, different taste, different flavor. Your ability to access other, opportunities in life also becomes greater. So the forest that we're creating is not just made up of one fruit. It's actually made up of multiple different fruits. Very additive.
For people who have like super in Australia or KiwiSaver in New Zealand, they're already participating in compounding interest growth. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But here's the kicker, and this is why you love property, right?
Yeah, so it's just growth on growth. And so you just continue to reinvest that. So if you make money, you reinvest it on the total amount, and then it basically keeps growing. But like you were saying, in terms of leveraged compound growth, and this is where I found it to be the most powerful, is, when you do buy a property, you're not going to buy the entire amount. Normally, you'll put in a small percentage, a 10 or 20%, and then you're getting a party to pay the rest. So normally that is a bank or lender that pays the rest. So to give you an example, and because compound growth in leveraged form, after the 5-year mark is where you really see it explode. And this is where it becomes exponential. And so I've been doing compound growth in my own property journey, and I'm about 8 years in now. And it's really just been the last couple of years that it has just gone berserk. And that is because of the power of compounding. So to give you an example, let's just say, for argument's sake, make it easy, we want to buy, and Brooke, I know you were saying that you're kind of looking at property, maybe not in Australia, but let's just say, for argument's sake, it's an $1 million property. Now, I wouldn't recommend to go and buy $1 million property for your first property, just putting it out there, but to make it easy for me with the numbers. You buy $1 million property, out of that property, let's say you only put in a 200,000 deposit. Okay. If that then property grows at a 7% growth rate, and our average in Australia is at 6.5%, then you're going just over average. To give you perspective, we've had properties that have done a 20% annual growth in a year, but let's just go just above average at 7%. So you've put in $200,000 and you've purchased a $1 million property using the bank's help, and it's growing at 7% annually, just over the average. So after year one, you've done the whole year with that property, you've then made $70,000 because it's compounding on top of the full asset, not on the $200,000 that you have invested. Now, year two, that compounds, year three, that compounds, year four, that compounds. The power I've felt is starting at about year five. So once we get to year five, that one property actually then is worth just over 1.4 million. So that is a $400,000 profit plus the 200 that you put in. So you've effectively made 400,000. And again, let's take it further. If you allow that to compound, let's take it to 10 years. 10 years is when it really gets powerful. So you will effectively have doubled your asset. So that means that you have made, it's just under $1 million, so 970,000. So if your property compounds at 7% every year, effectively, it would then double after that 10-year mark. So, and you've only put that $200,000 in. So you can really just see the magic of compounding growth. But not only in property and in business, I think that the compounding effect is across all aspects of life. If you think about your confidence and how that compounds over the years, your relationships, Viv, I know that you're the connector and you would have felt those relationships compound over the years. And so I love that this concept of compounding, not just for property, but just from a life perspective, because I have found relationships and decisions that I've made and been consistent at has compounded. Now, I guess I would love to kind of get your thoughts on it. Has there been something that you've sort of consistently done where you started and you're like, this is getting me nowhere, but over time and over years, you've really seen that compound?
I have a question first, Katie, and I guess this is like a bit of a question to just factor in some things that maybe I quite don't understand. But at what point, I mean, everyone loves to talk about compounding growth, but no one really talks about the interest. So at what point does the leverage stop compounding for you and start compounding against you?
So you mean the interest of the property, like the extra money that you might have to put down? So because you got to think about your rent. So at the moment, because interest rates are super high, most properties are definitely negative each week. Now, it completely depends on the property. So like one strategy that we love to use is we add granny flats or a second dwelling on the property. So we're getting two rents from the one property. Therefore, most of the time it is neutral depending on your deposit. So although we're talking about the growth, of course, then you have the cash flow of the property. But what your goal is to try and get enough rent for that property to cover most of that interest. And I guess that's the tug of war as a property investor between going for capital growth and going for cash flow, because both of those assets are very different. So our strategy has always been one for one. So we go for a capital growth property and then we go for a cash flow property to kind of try and balance the portfolio out. Otherwise, like what you're saying, every week you're left with a big hole in the pocket because you have to keep the property journey going and keep those properties maintained. But again, at the end of the day, when you do look at the capital growth that you're making versus the amount that you're paying each week for the cash flow, the capital growth just so much outweighs in dollar value the cash flow that you're having to put down. But it's definitely a valid point. You have to make sure that you have that cash flow to be able to maintain that property along that journey.
So is leverage still leverage if the interest is eating your cash flow?
Yeah, so you're getting leverage on the whole asset. So if you have $1 million property and it's going up 7%, you're getting the 7% on the full million. And
Mhm.
yes, you're paying interest for that $800,000 loan if you're going off my example. I don't know exactly what that interest would be. It would depend on the interest rate, but it's
Mhm.
only such a small amount in comparison to the compounding 7% growth that you're getting.
And Katie, I've got another question. Coming from a country that is, we've got our fair share of natural disasters. So leverage, and if you've got, say, you've got a house, you've got tenants in it, it's paying, it's neutral, whatever, happy days, which that means the rent is covering the rates and the mortgage and whatever. What if something like a flood or an earthquake happens? Are there different insurances you have in place so that should then the tenants not be able to live there, or the house needs all these repairs, or it's gonna, it's, I don't know, in an earthquake zone or something? What are the safety zones? Because otherwise I can understand then if you had lots of different properties and hold on, we've just had this major, I don't know, COVID, people can't come into the country or something, like big like black swan events. But what are the things that you do to protect yourself to make sure that if something does happen, you don't then also have a big downside?
Yeah, so definitely insurances. Now, this has saved me on 2 different occasions. I've had one property completely get trashed, meaning like unlivable, and it was a new property as well. And just recently, we actually had a car drive into one of our properties in Melbourne, which again is now unlivable. And thank God we have a very good insurance broker. So, similar to mortgage brokers, there are insurance brokers. And so they basically take care of all of our insurances. But in both cases, we weren't out of pocket at all. But that is because we have got really good insurances in place. So, yeah, definitely highly recommend insurances. I don't think that those occasions and the experiences that have happened to me are super frequent. But at the end of the day, in my 8-year journey, I've had 2 cases where our properties are unlivable for at least 8 months. So, yeah, insurance is for sure.
Katie, I feel like there's got to be people out there that have bitten off more than they can chew. Like that, I mean, especially if they're wanting to, grow their portfolio quickly. So, like, how do you know when leverage is accelerating growth versus quietly eroding it? Because everyone always talks about the upside. Like, we always hear the upside, but I feel like no one, like, what we don't necessarily hear or understand is like the interest, the timing, the risk, or like the downside of potentially biting off more than you can chew. And I guess the risks and the effect that can have on families who are trying to do that.
Yeah, and I think that I know we've sort of spoken about it on the podcast before, the rules around the trust lending and the company lending, it is for sophisticated investors. But I can see how maybe some families or some people who didn't quite have the experience may have bitten off more than they can chew. So
Mhm.
I always just encourage before buying a property is to look at the cash flow. It's like, okay, well, I know the interest, I know the cost of the loan, I know how much the house is going to cost. So you can just do the maths and be like, this is going to cost me an extra $300 a week. Can I honestly handle that or can I not? And if
Mm.
the case is no, then maybe it's about going for more of a cash flow play where, you buy one property, you split it off and you put a granny flat on it. So you do have to have those honest conversations. And I think it is doing the due diligence before purchasing the property where you actually sit down with a mortgage broker and you do the numbers because they can spit out and tell you, hey, this is what it's going to cost you every week. Can you honestly handle that cost? And,
Mhm.
obviously with the cost of goods and inflation, yeah, it's definitely tough. It is very, very hard. But so worth the grind, but at the start, it will feel like a grind, and that is compound interest for you, compound growth. It's at
Mhm.
the start when you're planting that one tree, and all you want to do is put your money back into that one tree. I was there for 10 years. For 10 years, I reinvested back into my same business to grow a bigger, badder, crazier business. And after about 10 years of doing that, being on that treadmill, I'm like, there's got to be a better way. And then instead of just putting all of my time and effort into that one tree in hope it doesn't crash, I then started planting little seeds to grow more trees, and then little seeds to grow more trees. And the diversification is life changing. And
Mm.
it wasn't until I understood the compounding effect that I sort of, I guess, took those moves.
I think what I really want to normalize here for people listening is that there is nothing sexy about what we're talking about. And I think that's what people get confused with. It's like, oh, cool, I bought a property. I want to start to see all of these upsides, but it doesn't work like that. And if we keep with the analogy, when you plant a tree, it requires you to water it, fertilize it, look after it before you see any growth. So it reminds me of something that came up in my community this week as well, where we've been running into a few issues with some of the women who are kind of like, why aren't I good enough yet? Like, why my skill set still feels like I'm down here. I don't feel like I'm there. And I had to do a realignment post where I was like, guys, sales or learning any skill set, saying compounding growth, whatever it is, there is nothing sexy or glamorous about it. It's you picking up a damn rock and moving it to a new place over and over and over again. And here's the crazy thing. It's like, the rock is always going to feel heavy. It's always going to be heavy. There's never going to be a time, even on your 50 millionth picking up of the rock, that it's going to feel less heavy, but your muscles are going to get bigger. You're going to be more able because your capacity has grown. And I think that was a light bulb moment for so many women in the community. For the first time, they actually understood, oh, this is more of a delayed gratification thing. It's like the more I do it, the better it's going to become, the more sexier and glamorous it's going to feel. But in the beginning, it is a grind. And that's what I want to normalize here. It's a grind. It's you going, okay, let me look at my budget. What can I actually sacrifice or let go of so that I can plant a new tree? And eventually, after I've watered it, fertilized it, done the same thing over and over and over again with no result, I will then start to see the fruits of my labor.
Yeah, and that's the, like, I guess, tough part. It's really, I haven't seen the compounding effect until at least year 6 or 7. And this is, like you're saying, year 6 or 7 years of watering and grinding and every day just keeping the consistency. So, yeah, massive lesson for me. What
I
about
like
your thoughts
Well,
on
I
it?
like I like what you said around what are the other things that have compounded in your life, in terms of knowledge, because I've spent a lot of time at home recently, and one of my best mates, we used to be business partners, and we were laughing about how when we went out on our own at like 21, that how much we used to muck around, but we had such a fun time, but we also had absolutely no idea what we were doing, and we didn't know anyone else with businesses, and when we found them, we all got an office together, and we just like, do some client stuff and then do some other things, and we'd have these goals, and there was just such a big gap between, right, we want to have this cool business and do all this travel and these fun things, but for some reason I just don't, like, why is nothing working? Like, it just feels like you're throwing stuff at the wall. And you get to the stage, I think it was last year, I had a moment where, I had a point of reflection where I went, wow, and even starting Girls Get Off, to get to the 1 mil mark, that was only a year compared to all the other years before that, where you're just stacking knowledge and you feel like it's not working. But then that point of like iteration where, okay, to get you from 0 to say a mil for just example purposes, it's going to get shorter and shorter and shorter the more knowledge that you have. But since I'm thinking about finishing high school, going to uni. You had in your head, all right, it's going to take me 3 years to get through my degree, and then I'm at like the bottom of the rung to go through something. Since uni, I don't think I've ever really viewed something. I've always wanted that instant gratification as well. I thought, all right, I'm ready. Like, I can do this Instagram stuff. Like, I want lots of money now. I want a big business so I can do whatever I want. I can have all this freedom. And then you realize it's only because we are seeing that someone's end result online that we think, oh, well, we can do it now. But it's so normal for things to have a learning process, a marination phase, and that's just the time that it takes to get good at it. But once you stack the learnings and really go deep on it, that's where you start to see the results. And that's like one of the reasons why I got shiny object syndrome last year. I thought, I'm going to do a bit of property over here, going to do this. And I thought, I'm actually still at the stage where I need to double down on like creating this knowledge first. And so, yeah, that will happen in the future. But right now, I see the benefit in just going deep on building businesses, learning how to manage teams, like building the business bigger, working myself out of a job. And that's where I'm focusing my compounding on at the moment.
I want to give everyone a really great formula for this, because the shiny object syndrome comes all the time, and it's because we're too attached to the outcome. So if we go back to the compounding interest, we're too attached to what that's going to make us in the future, which means we're too attached to the result. This is like sales psychology 101. And it's the same, like I tell my women on a sales call, if you are too attached to the sale, you will actually push it away further and further and further. And so the result is always the end product. It's something you have to detach from. And what you have to start with is the mindset. The mindset is so important, because what is that going to feed? It's going to feed the action. It's going to feed the behaviors that follow someone who already has the mindset of a forest and having property that's actually getting them compound interest. So not compound interest, compounding like results. So I think that's just such an important lesson. It's never to fixate on what you want. It's to fixate on the person or the mindset and the behaviors of someone who already has that. That's what you should be focusing on, because the rest will just come. It will be a byproduct of you doing the thing over and over and over again. And this is why I'm so just really want to like break it down for our listeners, is that you have to normalize the freaking process. You have to normalize that it's going to feel like nothing for so long, and you're going to see it's the same thing with building an Instagram following, right? Or any kind of following. In the beginning, it feels like a real grind, and you're like, why am I bothering showing up? Who's watching this? No one's caring about it. And a lot of people, that's where they stop, because they're like, I thought I would already have 100,000 followers, or I thought I would already have $1 million business. But it's like, no. You're too attached to the outcome. You haven't worried and focused your attention and energy on the mindset of someone who already has that. And that's just such an important lesson. It's like, let's act, move, think, talk, behave like a person who already has that. And then the result is going to become because of it.
I love that. That's awesome.
And it's about trusting the process as well. I think even look at this podcast. I think every one of us would say, yeah, I'll do 100 podcast episodes, even if we have 500 listeners, because we won't, we'll get more. But we all know that it's just the process. I'm not putting that out into the universe, but we all know that that's the process, and it will get there. It just takes time and patience. You can't expect to have all of it all at once if you've never done it before, because that's, even if it did work that way, you wouldn't have the lessons. How are you supposed to replicate it? You've got to love the game and treat
and
it
I
as
think
such.
with like that delayed gratification, it's like, we're so attuned to getting things so fast. It's like, we do something, we get the result. We do something, we get the result. And it's just not the reality of my experience. It's like I do 100 things and I don't get the result for like years down the track. So I think, social media has probably fueled a society where that instant gratification is kind of coming. But yeah, it definitely has not been my experience. It is a long ride.
And it's an opportunity for those who are willing to put in the hard yards and just accept that that is going to take time. Then the world's your oyster, because sometimes it might happen quicker than you expect. But as long as you're enjoying the process, then, great things to come.
I'm keen to hear what's been happening in business, because for us, I wanted to share something that I had a big lesson this week, and I think this will help a lot of people who that actually flows on from this. So, as you all know, there are 2 she cells that exist in the world, and one is bigger, has a lot more of an audience than the other. And so something that I'm constantly seeing and what's constantly being thrown in my face is tagging of the other she cells and just like, comments and just little things here and there. And I've learned to turn a blind eye to that and just keep doing what I'm doing, knowing that it's in my best interest to just stay in my lane, focus on what I'm doing and the lives that I'm changing. But every now and then you do get pulled into something that it's hard to, I guess, let go of. It kind of just, you're either spiraling down or you're spiraling up. And I had an incident this week where it just threw me into a spiral down, 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 down. And it was something ridiculous. Like, one of my business partners actually sent a message to our group just saying, I know so-and-so's numbers. I know how much she's doing. And I didn't respond. I didn't want to feed it. I didn't want to give a question mark. I didn't want to do anything. I just actually wanted to be like, hey, it doesn't matter. Why are we focusing on our energy and attention on this? Now, for him, it's showing him what's possible. But for me, it was like I started to question, because he obviously shared them. I started to just question everything. What's the point? Why are we even bothering? Like, I really just allowed myself to fall into victim, woe is me, it's not fair. And so I was driving with my husband, and I was just like venting, and I was just being super negative, like trying to pull him into my downward, like mentee be with me. And because we're such great communicators, he was like, all right, Brooke, let's just suppose, and this is a great reframing question you can ask yourself when you do notice that you're spiraling down. Let's suppose everything you are saying right now is 100% true. Then what? And I just looked at him and was like, fuck you. But I was also like, then nothing. Then I guess we just close up shop, and then there's that. And he's like, okay, is that what you want? And I was like, no. And he's like, so why are you wallowing in that belief? It's not serving you. It's definitely not what you want. So why wouldn't you choose to look at this and just let it expand what is actually possible for us? And I was like, I love you. Like, as much as it sucks to hear in the moment, I was like, you're so right. Like, my one of my biggest values is there's plenty of pieces of the pie for us all. And rather than seeing something and letting me like set a limitation on myself, I should look at it and be like, wow, like that's what's actually possible in this space. And I'm going to let it drive me. I'm going to let it expand my consciousness of what's actually possible for myself. And that really, it was almost instantaneously that I was pulled out of that spiral and started to think and see the horizon of what was actually possible. So I just want to share that. It's very real, and it's a thing that I do battle with. And I've done all the things, like I've turned my eye, I've stayed in my lane, I've focused on myself. But every now and then it's like you're forced to look at it, and you have two decisions. You either dwell on it and let it affect the decisions that you make moving forward, or you reframe yourself and actually go, no, like this isn't serving any purpose. I'm actually going to park that, not invalidate what I'm feeling, but just park it and choose to the latter, which is harder, but it's always the more productive and efficient way to do it. So yeah.
I love that. And I love the genuine transparency. I think, again, normalizing the real thoughts and emotions that we have as business owners. You didn't have to share that. So I really appreciate your openness. And I think just two thoughts on that. First, kudos to your husband.
Yeah.
An example of asking the right questions. I think, in life, if we just ask the right questions, we'll get a better answer. And like, look at your reaction, as you said, instantly, and how that changed you. So I think just asking the right questions. And the second thing is sort of just knowing, I know we've spoken about this before, but, when we talk about that balloon, and like potentially at that moment, your balloon was already full. And so that certain thing may not have sent you down a spiral normally, but because your balloon is just so full, it's like we get to the capacity where we just literally can't handle any more information. And then, as a business owner, you're going to get more information whether you like it or not, and not all of it is good. So it's like, how do we deflate our balloon before it explodes and before it pops? I don't have the answer. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts.
I will. Sorry,
It's
Viv,
a
you go.
perfect example of like what we were talking about earlier. You can't necessarily control you can't control what's happening around you. You can only ever control how you react to that. And that's so cool that you were pulled up on that by someone close in your life. I think that's a reminder of who you're surrounding yourselves with. But I also think it's a reminder of everyone, like, emotions and reactions are fine. It's just then where you go after that. And the more I've found over time, as soon as you realize that, okay, I want to be more above the line, I want to be more, react and reframe positive ways so that I'm not working myself up because I'm the only one getting worked up. That's a muscle that needs to be practiced. And it's one thing to have awareness over it. Sometimes you need someone else to pull you up on it because it's like you say, it's way harder to be accountable or take the higher road is an overused term, but take the road that actually puts you in control of your own emotions. But it takes time. And I think for anyone at the start of that journey who is, reacts to things and feels like it's out of their control, then make sure you've got good people around you so you can work towards that. And also it's fine to have the reactions. Just keep practicing.
In sales, it's my duty of care, and something that I pledge to always do is to hold the mirror up. Like, that is one of my core values, and it's what I teach women how to sell, hold the mirror up, because you can't see your blind spot necessarily. And in the moment, it always feels better to whinge and to vent. That feels good. It does. And sometimes what you want from your husband or you want from your girlfriends is the validation. And that's 1000% what I was searching for, is like, validate me right now. And because he also took that pledge, and that's also one of his values, is to hold up the mirror even when it's hard for him and uncomfortable. It's the kind thing to do. And so when he did that, as much as I was like, oh, you just couldn't give me this validation just this one time, he did exactly what I needed, not what I wanted. And that's such an important lesson. It's like, I knew if I went to my girlfriends, if I went to my coaches, they would give me that validation because they're like, oh, Brooke, like, that's so annoying. And oh my God. And so it was almost like my body knew that I had to talk to Scott about it because he wouldn't do that. So you're right, Viv. It's all about exposing. It's getting us doing the thing and actually telling, if saying, look, I really want validation and I know that's what I'm seeking right now. However, I would love you to hold up the mirror and just show me what I'm not seeing right now. Give me a different way to look at this. And it is the hardest thing, please. Like, it is. It doesn't feel easier. It's the same with the rock. It's always going to feel heavy. But it's like, immediately it's allowing yourself not to just feel shit. Like, I didn't want my whole day to just be shit because of that. I want to be better at feeling, acknowledging my feelings, parking it, letting it go and moving on. And that is such a thing that women, we get trapped in, right? We overthink, we dwell on things. Like, honestly, there was a point in my life where someone would cut me off and I would cut someone off and they would yell something at me, and I would literally replay that in my mind over and over and over again. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I allowing myself just to feel shit over something that happened hours ago and this person's probably not even thinking about anymore? It's just, it doesn't serve anything. So you need to be able to let it go, and letting it go, unfortunately, means you need to look at the shadow in the mirror. What are you actually seeking right now? Is that going to serve you? And if it's not, then let it go.
And that's also very, like, it's easier said than done, right? Like, yeah, cool. Yeah. If your partner says that, you can say, yeah, great. Now what? I'm still fuming, or let it go.
Right.
Yeah, cool. I'm not, but it's like the awareness is the first step. And then I think personally, if you do see these things come up and up, like again and again and again, go and see a therapist, because sometimes, like you say, blind spots, they are just wizards, man. Although I think they must think, oh my God, silly little human again. But they're amazing for things like that. If you feel like you're coming up against the same pattern often and you feel like, why am I the only one getting in a loop here? Then I've found them amazing in situations where you can't quite get past it yourself.
You know what? Because I'm all about making things super easy, right? Because humans, we know seeing a therapist requires you to book it in, actually get in your car, drive there. Maybe you have the ability to jump on Zoom. Use fucking ChatGPT as your therapist. Literally, this works so incredibly well for me the other day. I spoke to it because my husband and I were having a disagreement, as we do. And I just spoke to it and I was like, hey, why is he getting so mad at me right now? This is the situation. Give me a non-biased, psychological view of what's actually going on in his brain. I read that to him and he was like, holy shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, make it easy for yourself. Like, you don't have to go and see a therapist. Like, speak to ChatGPT and it will tell you what you're doing, what pattern you're actually stuck in. Because
And
we're all Yeah.
The best thing is that if you use ChatGPT a lot, it obviously has all of the knowledge about you. And so as long as you give it like the honest prompt, so it's not just buttering you up because it can do
Right.
that as well. I love putting the honest prompt on. And yeah, I use it all the time as a life coach. Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. Awesome. Brooke.
So anyway, that's what happened in my business world. We're obviously like January is a great month where we're crushing. We actually when we met, you know how we were doing our management meeting, we met and we set some really big goals. And because I'm not usually a planner, as we all know, things just stay in my mind, and I'm like, cool, that's what we're working towards, a 25 million run rate. Yep, cool. That's all I need to know. And it's like, well, no. Now we detach from that and we reverse engineer, and we're like, okay, what does a $25 million business owner think like? What do they do? And that's going to, really tell us the type of action and the type of audacity that we need to take this year. So that was really, really useful. And we have made some pretty big changes, pretty big hires, all set, ready to go, so that, by the end of, same time, this time next year, I can be like, we are a $25 million business, which will be very cool.
One big, bold, bad, fruity tree, that one.
Cool. He is hairy and thick and juicy, all the things. Full of
So
mayonnaise.
what are some of the things then that you're doing to like act differently or change the way you're going about things to build this bigger business?
So great question. I think the word thing that we discussed in the last podcast was super huge. I think we all agreed that audacity was going to be the business word as well. So we are committing to more content. So you probably have seen my new ads. We are committing to 2 full days of filming every single week. So we've just hired a videographer to sort of follow me around and just capture content, and we're going to become content machine. So rather than looking at it as just a sales agency, we're becoming like a media agency where we're just pumping out content. That's going to be my main role alongside the fulfillment and the coaching. And one thing that's really important to us is it's not necessarily about size. So we're actually looking at verticals, diagonals, things that we can do within the business to increase our top line, which is to bring in more revenue without actually just keep increasing our price. So we don't want our structure to just look like this. We actually want it to look like kind of all over the place. We're bringing in revenue from all sorts of areas. So we're looking at ways to do that as well. We've obviously brought on new staff so that we can, focus on higher, bigger vision things. We've invested in masterminds this year. We're actually running our first mastermind in February, which is really exciting. We're just doing bigger, more audacious things. So, yes.
I've just been reading a book called Buy Back Your Time by
Yeah.
Dan Marshall or something. And I thought, for God's sakes, Vivian, you know what to do here. Like, you do not need to read this book. I'm like, I'll just read it anyway. I need an easy book. And I started reading it, and I'm only 30% of the way through. And I am just reminded so much of how important, it's nothing so far that I haven't done before, but I love the way he words it. And one of the things I've taken from it is, if you add up all the time you spend in the business, I think to divide that by, I'm going to get this wrong, 4 or something, 4 or 8 or something like that. So divide up, your your yearly, oh, for God's sakes, maths. Anyway,
We'll put it in the notes.
basically, yeah. Read the book. It's not that hard. Basically, divide your hourly rate by 4, and then anything that is, if you track your time for the next week or 2, anything that falls below that amount or that amount exactly, get rid of it. And I feel like we're already doing it, but when you see the examples, you go, actually, there's more that can be done there. And who else can I bring in? What else can we do to make this machine work? Like, give it some more oil, and that's been a really good reminder. And you've just flagged that in my head too, Brooke.
The only thing I disagree about that is sometimes I will extend myself to go and have a coffee catch up with a community member, or someone who is just starting out their business might send me a message and be like, hey, like, do you mind if I pick your brain for an hour? We're both in Bali. And my husband gets really mad at me because he's like, Brooke, you got to stop doing that. Like, again, based on that principle. But I have a belief, and a core value of mine is like, you just never know what's going to come from a conversation. You never know what's on the other side of that. It's so great to just extend yourself, obviously without draining your battery, and obviously without, pouring from an empty cup. I get all of those things, but I have really gone out of my way to help some people, and I tell you the reciprocity of doing that and is just it's crazy. And yes, cool, maybe it is below my hourly rate or whatever it is, and I probably could have brought in 10x the revenue if I'd focused that hour elsewhere, though the opportunities and the connections and the compounding things that come off the back of that have always served me in my favor. So I think like yes to that, but also it's like just remember like you can say yes to things that and it's not always like, oh, I'm going to go catch up this person for a reason, but it's more just like I am going to expand my network. You never know what comes from a conversation. You never know what opportunity is waiting behind someone. If you make, so that's kind of how I live my life as
And
well.
it also fills your cup, if
Yeah.
like Tony Robbins, it's like service. Like service is such a huge part of happiness, in my opinion. And so,
Yeah.
it's those little extra miles that you go for people. It's actually internally filling that cup up. I love that, Brooke, and I 100% agree with you. I'm exactly the same. It's like I actually sometimes think I'm getting more out of it than what they are because it just makes me feel so good. And what goes around comes around. And so you got to put that good energy out there. Love that.
And I would argue the whole purpose of getting things off your plate is so you can do what you want like that. And I think with a community like yours where you are the leader, that, it only takes one person to be an outstanding ambassador for you to grow that community and keep the culture really high. So I actually think, and it's not like you could outsource that if you wanted to, but you can't duplicate you. So I don't actually think that's necessarily something that could be replicated,
Oh, you would have to like drag me kicking and screaming away from me doing something like that. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, Brooke, I know you mentioned either on a podcast or off, I can't remember, but you guys were building a Brooke AI brain. How is that going?
yes. That's actually been put on ice at the moment just because we actually are using and utilizing AI in other areas of the business. So we just bought on Dialer.io, which is going to help us with speed to lead. That's the most important for any online business owners that are listening. Speed to lead is the most important thing. And for us, we had a ridiculous speed to lead. It was like 400 minutes or something. Like they couldn't even believe it. They're like, "What? How is that even possible?" So now our speed to
Explain
lead.
what speed to lead is. I don't
So speed
understand
to
it.
lead is how quickly. So you've got a top of funnel. So let's say someone sees one of my ads and they click in and they actually inquire. Speed to lead is how quickly you contact that person after the fact. Yeah.
Gotcha.
You got to think,
cool.
right? Ads are designed to capture attention. That's why we have a hook at the front of it. And in that moment, you are trying to get a person to feel a certain way. So usually it's like calling out of their problem. Hey, do you hate your 9 to 5? Yeah, I do. Well, I have a solution for you. So they're listening. And then in that moment, they're like, hell yes, register my info. Now let's just say, like 400 minutes later, we're ringing them up. The moment has passed.
Like,
So
I forgot about that.
yeah, they're like, "What? She sells who? Sorry, what? Is this so and so?" Nope, it's not. So 400 minutes is unacceptable. That's like insanely bad. So now we want to try and get our speed to lead like in the seconds, so that they're like, "Holy shit, I just did that." And this software that we've just been able to bring on is allowing us to do that by getting rid of spam numbers, for instance. It's helping us be able to call quicker. It's speaking, it's like calibrated differently. So that's really cool. Something else that we're doing with AI is we've just brought on like an organic, something to do with an AI data. I see this isn't something that I'm ever involved in. I just get told that we're doing. But we're exploring with, I guess, AI that's making things more convenient for us, which is giving us back time. Making a Brooke brain sounds great and it's very sexy, but it didn't actually serve any purpose other than it would be a cool thing. So that's on ice, but it's definitely something that as like a continuity model we're exploring, because that's one of the verticals that we want to look at is what is our continuity model going to be. But yeah, Brooke brain has to wait.
What about you,
Brooke,
Katie? The what's happening in your business?
Oh, lots always going on. Juggling lots of things at the moment. Yeah, we had a really crazy sort of 6 months leading into Christmas. The construction industry kind of goes to sleep, but everyone has woken up and they are kicking and screaming. So all hands on deck. We put about 11 contracts, 11 properties under contract in sort of the last 6 months. So all of these 11 projects, we're sort of running through the DD on them because although we've put 11 projects under contract and under a due diligence period, we might not eventuate every single project. So we're just in that period now where we kind of go through a full DD process. We've already done the feasibilities on them and they all are great, but now it's just really getting granular on the costs and making sure that our feasibility is correct. So yeah, going through all the town planning, talking to all of our consultants. And yeah, that's kind of the process that we're in. So it is quite a lot of work in the DD process, but one that's super important. So I think our projects are starting to come off DD late February. So yeah, we've got just over a month to decide, hey, yeah, we're going to start this project, start the building process. There'll be some that don't make it and there'll be some that do. But we went pretty hard in site acquisitions over the last 6 months. So it's going to be a very busy couple of years for us.
Well
Oof,
done.
keen to be on the journey.
Yeah, this is going to be great podcast content.
Oh yeah.
Just houses. Property.
That's fine. That's good. It's not boring. It's like so important. It's
Sorry,
so-
guys. I have nothing interesting other than property going on in my life. So you're not going to get a whole lot more from me other than that. So I do apologize.
Is that belief serving you? Let's say that was 100% true. What then?
You'll learn.
It's obviously not very boring to you, Katie. It's not very boring to us either. It's so fascinating. It's such a different way of going about creating
God
your own life.
Thank God my husband likes property as well because it's literally all I talk about. So thank God. Otherwise, I don't think I'd have a husband.
You're banned from saying that it's boring or that you're not very interesting anymore, right? Banned. No more.
I am
Are
the
you
boring
open to
one
that
out
kind
of
of
the three of us.
accountability?
Come on. I've definitely got the boring
No,
tag.
you're not at all.
You too?
You're a wild
No
owl.
way. No way. People think it's exciting because that's what they see on social media, but really I'm just a computer nerd, It's I just sit at my computer all day.
And I'm just a shopping addict. So there's nothing exciting or overly amazing about that. Oh, jeez. Well, I want to leave everyone on a bit of a cliffhanger because I have a big announcement to share with everybody. But I'm not going to do it this episode because we're actually already over time. So you're going to have to listen in next week to get the big announcement. But I won't say anything else.
Exciting. So excited. Cannot wait to hear your announcement.
Oh, I am busy.
There. We're so good to chat. See you later. Bye, guys.
So yeah.